Hi everyone, it's Nicole and I'm here with another process video. Now, this one here is a little different than all my regular process video. Every month I read a lot. That is my other hobby. I love reading. So the last 2 years, what I was doing every month was I was documenting all the books that I read within a month in a mini album. But then this year I decided that instead of doing my books in a mini album, I'm just going to do it in a regular 12 by 12 album and use some 12 by 12 page protectors from either Project Life or other manufacturers that create those pocket pages. So what I did at the very beginning of the year was I have this little stamp set and I stamped it well over 200 times. Not because I expect to read 200 books in the next year, but more because I'm keeping track of the way I read my books in two different ways this year. I have this reading planner. It's the Bookworm Life, and that's where I'm keeping track. I put my monthly TBR in this. I have a list of books I'd like to read in the next year. I have those in there. I keep track of all the series that I start in the year, all the series that I finish in the year, all the new authors that I read, all the new releases, every book that are over 500 pages. So I'm also keeping track in that reading planner of all the books that I read every month. But I'm thinking that anything like a planner or something like that, eventually it'll probably get thrown out and then I won't know which books I read in a specific year. So this is fun for me to look at it because I'm always looking in this reading planner absolutely every day. But I would like to have somewhere where I can keep track year after year in that same albums all the books that I read. So to tell you the truth, the first two mini albums that I created, I will probably move them in this 12 by 12 because they're just 3 by 4 and 4 by 6 cards. So it'll be easy to move them over to this 12 by 12. And then that way, I'll have 3 years worth of books that I read in that one album. And then next year, I'll keep documenting which books I read every month. So all that to say, that's why I stamped that little book stamp over 200 times because I'm going to need the numbers for my reading planner, but also for this project, for the bigger album, the 12 by 12. Then the next thing I do is I go on Goodreads and I take a snapshot of every single one of the books that I read in that specific month. Then I go to my Pick Frame app and I use the frame that has two photos on one 4x6 and I put it bordered, and then the size I use, it's at the very top. You can change the size. It's 4:3. Then I go to my Canon selfie and I just print all the photos. The next thing I do is I grab a kit, a Project Life card kit, and I just go through and find, I don't take 5 or 6 boxes out. I take one box and then I go through that one box and I find the cards that I need for the entire month. And that way it cuts down a lot on the time, because otherwise if I would have to go back and forth between all the different boxes, it would probably take me a long time. Then I also choose a journaling card where I'm going to do a little bit of journaling about the books that I read. Now, I'm a little obsessed with these viewfinders and labels that my son created for me, and they're available in my shop. And so I use them all the time. They're the perfect thing to make embellishment clusters, like to start your embellishment clusters. So I decided to start all the embellishment clusters for each one of the photos using a label and also a viewfinder. I also have a 5-star rating stamp, and I just stamp on each card. And then once I am done embellishing all the cards, then I go back and I figure out what rating I gave every book and I just color it in using some markers. So I kind of like doing everything in batches. I made all the book with the numbers all in one sitting. Then I find all the cards. Then I glue the pictures to the cards all at once. Then I go through each one of the cards again and I make a little bit of an embellishment cluster. I don't make it super involved. I just make sure that there's just a little bit of embellishment, and then I put the star rating. Once I have all the embellishments done, then I go back and I do all my journaling or my writing about the book all at once. And I have a specific reason for that. I so have a hard time with my journaling. So while I was doing this, I was actually listening to an audiobook. There's no way that I could be listening to an audiobook and then writing down my thoughts about the book. So by waiting until everything is done, then I turned off the audiobook and then I can concentrate on writing a little bit about each book. Another thing I did was for each of the 2-page spread for the month, I take one card and I just put February reads or January reads, whatever month that I'm in. And this month specifically, I only read 9 books. So there's going to be way more openings in the 2-page spread than there is books that I actually read. So I'm going to show you at the end what I did to kind of take up some space for those extra cards. So what I did a few years ago was I took a big iris container and I put all the stamp sets that are book related. Then I took a few sticker books that are meant for planners, and I find that a lot of them I can use whatever. There's little flowers and little labels. I'm using them specifically for this project, and I've added a few things to that iris container, but mostly I've been using the same products, and so it's just making sure that I get to use a lot of the supplies that I have. What I also love is that I'm getting to use my Project Life cards because they've been sitting there for quite a bit, and I have quite a few of those big kits, and so it's getting me to use them. Another thing that I want to do is to take some out and then use them on my regular layouts, because these cards are perfect for journaling cards. So I could be using them also in my regular scrapbooking. So you'll probably see me using those very soon in my layouts. I got to make sure to get some of these products not used up, because I have quite a few, but at least that I'm putting a dent in these in my stash. So this is the last book that I'm going to do a little bit of embellishing, and then I'm going to start journaling on each cards. Before I do that, I make sure that I kind of clean up my area so that it kind of declutters my brain too, so that I'm able to concentrate on just the journaling. So before I start the journaling though, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each card now, and I usually have my Goodreads up and I look and see what I rated all the books at, and usually I try to find a coordinating distress marker and I just color in the number of stars that I rated the book. And again, because I love doing things in batches, that's why I'm doing this all at once. I'm not, starting to journal and then switching my brain into, okay, now I got to find the Goodreads. I got to find out what I rated this book. I just tend to do everything in batches. And this process of documenting the books used to take me a couple of hours to do a month, and now I have it down so that I can get all my books documented and journaled on in 1 hour. So by doing them in batches, it has really helped. So now let's talk about the 9 books that I read in February. The first one was Shaped Hack by Tracy Jarvis Graves, and this is an adult contemporary about Ian, who is a hacker, and Kate, who works at a food bank, and this is their love story. It's so good. It had a lot of suspense, which kind of surprised me, but I loved. I gave it 5 stars. The next book that I read was Wildcard by Marie Lu, and this was the finale in a duology about a hacker who had hacked her way into a reality game, and then she was hired to capture someone else that was trying to hack the game. Super good, 5 stars. The next book I read was Bring Me Back by B.A. Paris, and this is an adult thriller about a girl who disappears while they're on vacation, and years later, the boyfriend or the fiance has moved on. He's just ready to get married again. And then all of a sudden, all these clues start, happening that maybe that girl is not dead. Super good. I gave it 4 stars. The next book is White Hot Hack by Tracy Jarvis Graves, and this is the conclusion of the series that I was reading about Ian being a hacker and Kate, who worked at the food bank. Super good, gave it 4 stars, loved it. The next book was Love Her or Lose Her by Tessa Bailey, and this is a contemporary. It's also a companion to Fix Her Up, and this follows Rosie and Dominic. He's a war veteran with a lot of, issues, and this is sort of their love story of finding their way back to each other. It's a married couple, and she had kind of left him, and he's trying to win her back. The next book is the second book in a series. It's a young adult fantasy about a girl whose father was murdered and her childhood sweetheart was accused. It's called Ever the Brave by Erin Summerall. Super good, gave it 4 stars. Then the next book I read is also the second book in the series by V.E. Schwab. It's A Gathering of Shadows. This is about Kel and Delilah and Prince Rai. And Kel is a magician that can go between Londons, and there's a whole bunch of shenanigans that happens. And in this book, there was a competition of magician, which I really loved. I gave it 4 stars. Then the next book I read is a young adult contemporary called Her Royal Highness by Rachel Hawkins. This is a companion novel to Prince Charming. This follows Princess Flora, and she's going to a new private school, and it's her love story with Millie, which happens to be her roommate. This was a super cute story. I gave it 4 stars. Truly enjoyed it. And the last book I read in February is called Starry Eyes by Jen Bennett. And this is a young adult contemporary about Zori and Lennon, who get stranded on a camping trip and they need to survive. And it's all about hiking and being in the wilderness. I absolutely love this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. Loved it. We're big on hiking and climbing mountains and all this stuff, so it was something that I really enjoyed. So this is one of the projects that I love to complete and put it right away in the album right away. So what I do is I take a piece of white cardstock and I just cut some strips, because a lot of the page protectors I have are 4x6 openings, and I want to make sure that I use all the page protectors that I have. I don't want to go out and buy extra things that I don't need to. So I just use these little pieces of paper, and then that way I can put the cards side by side and they don't slide around in my album. And I don't know if I mentioned that, but I put the books in the album in the order that I read the books. And I find that kind of interesting too, because then I can kind of see, where sort of like my head was at, because yes, I do make a TBR every month, but I typically read between 9 and 10 books every month, and I put 15 books on my TBR usually every month, and then that way it gives me some leeway on the books that I read. Now, once I had all of the books in, or the pictures of the books in, that's when I realized that I had 2 extra spots because I didn't read 12 books. And so I went into my Project Life container and got two 4x6 cards, and then I'm going to put the same title that I put in my reading planner. So on this card I'm going to put so many books, and then on the next card I'm going to put so little time. This is really a project that I'm really enjoying, and I can honestly say that I have flipped through these albums to look which books I've read, and I really enjoy flipping through these albums. So that's it. That's going to complete February, and I want to thank you so much for watching. Bye.